Okay, so welcome again to another Franchise Company First Friday group. We haven't quite decided what we're going to call this. It's not a webinar. We talked about a learning zone, maybe, Julie, didn't we? About, it's basically an opportunity for the franchise company to work with some of our associates and clients and people of interest in the franchise sector to share some knowledge and share some learning on the first Friday of every month. We've been going now for best part of a year, I think, Julie. Is it our anniversary soon?
Yeah, it must be something like that.
Yeah, and it's really all about sharing training and skills development. My name's Nick Bramley. You all know, or probably do know, Julie. I look after the training, coaching, and mentoring side of the franchise company. Today we've got a very special guest who many of you will know. I've been to a few franchise events and Ed's always there, so he's obviously well established and well networked. And given that he's talking about how to use LinkedIn as a franchise marketing and recruitment tool, then I guess networking is definitely part of that process. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Ed from the franchise, and he's going to explain all about LinkedIn and making it work for you. So you can have the screen share, Ed, and we'll go from there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that very lovely and elaborate introduction there, Nick. I feel like the pressure's on now, but yeah, thank you to everybody for joining today and for giving me the opportunity to speak with you and share some of my knowledge around LinkedIn that I've gained over a number of years. So I wanted to kind of put it down into 5 key points for you to take away. So I've called it 5 ways you can use LinkedIn effectively to recruit new franchisees. So I thought I'd kick off by just telling you a little bit about myself. So I've had 14 years, nearly 15 now, in recruitment, including headhunting, and that's also involved B2B sales and marketing. The last 3.5 years now, it's been with expense reduction analysts and within the franchising industry. Now, for the last year or so, I've been, as some of you may have seen, putting out podcasts, and I've started to build a company called The Franchise in the background. And I'll tell you a bit more about that at the end. But I'm also married, live in Ashford with 2 children, aged 5 and 7. As you can see in the background, I like guitars and playing music. Well, trying to play music anyway. And if anybody's got any tips around Asian food or Belgian beers, I'd be more than happy to hear about that. So why am I talking about LinkedIn? Well, I pulled together a few stats that I think are really important. And I think it's a platform that everybody should be looking at to use for franchise recruitment. So the first of those is the fact that there's 690 million members on LinkedIn as a whole. And of that number, 33 million members are based in the UK. Now, I tried to find some stats of how many people in the UK were in work and employed. Certainly there's about 33 million. So pretty much everybody is on LinkedIn in some form or another within the working sort of bracket. And of those, 79.5% of them are aged between 25 and 54, which I see as the core age demographic for people looking to buy into a franchise license. So it's very much the audience we want to be tapping into in the franchising industry. And this final point I find quite interesting because 46% of traffic, social media traffic that lands on a website or company website comes through from LinkedIn. And if you consider all the other platforms that are out there, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn is way and above in terms of a referral source for traffic to websites from social media. So I think it's essential that your brand should be on here and well represented. The other thing that I think I've thought about a lot recently is that social media is today's magazines and newspapers. I've spoken to a lot of people in the franchising industry about how they'd go about finding franchisees. In the past, they've always said exhibitions and magazines have worked really well. Being in the newspapers like the Financial Times has really been a good source for them. Well, I don't think too many people are picking up those physical elements anymore, and instead they're spending their lunch breaks and evenings on social media, and each social media platform has its own, excuse me, kind of magazine feel to it almost. So for me, I use Twitter to keep up to date with football and Arsenal because it's very up to date and relevant. I use Facebook for events and catching up with what my friends and family are doing. And I use LinkedIn for anything to do with work or my career. So for me, that really makes sense that we should be on LinkedIn as a community. So the first of my 5 kind of key areas I wanted to focus on is the homepage. And so I thought I'd just give you a few points on why I think this is important. So it's a really good place for validation. I don't know if any of you were on the presentation with Adam Lovelock from Coconut Creatives last month, but he talked about the journey of a franchisee when they're investigating a brand. So they might find them on a listing site, they then go and find them on their website, and then they try and search for anything and everything they can about a brand online. And LinkedIn's a really good place to actually present your business and show them that you're there, you're present, and give them a little bit of additional information, not only about the kind of business side of it, but the culture of the brand as well. So I guess leading on to that then, it gives your brand a voice. You can also build communities from the homepage. And of course, that directs people to your website, as we've already mentioned. It also gives you access to paid advertising. So with a personal profile, you can't access paid advertising on LinkedIn, but via your homepage, you can. I won't go into that too much today, just because I think it's better to keep to the kind of free elements initially. But it's also a place where staff and franchisees can link to the page, which again kind of fleshes out your business in that environment. But also when people are researching your brands, I've actually spoken to a lot of prospective franchisees for expense reduction analysts who have said, I can see you've got 10 franchisees in the Netherlands or wherever it may be. Can you tell me a bit more about these people? And I think that's quite an interesting thing to consider. But I wanted to share with you just one thought I had when trying to put this together and trying to compare, a LinkedIn homepage to something else. And where I got to was with a Tesco's, you've got the flagship store, which is on the outskirts of the town, and that's their main business, right? That's where they push all of the traffic towards on the whole. However, in the towns, in some of these smaller communities, they also have a smaller shop front called Tesco Express. And I see the LinkedIn homepage as like your version of a Tesco's Express. If the shelves of the Tesco Express were empty, that wouldn't be that successful. But it's the same for your LinkedIn profile, your homepage. It needs to be completely filled out. The shelves need to be filled out so that people can get a good understanding and buy into your business. So the first look at that, I thought I'd go and look at some franchise brands and try and find ones that have done it really well and against ones that have done it poorly. And interestingly enough, I went to McDonald's first because, they're one of the biggest brands out there. And I came across this page. And to me, that's not inviting as a prospect. They've got nothing on there about their brand. There's no posts. You've got no imagery, no nothing. And that's really disappointing. But I found out this is a dummy account or somebody set this up and it's completely wrong. This is actually what their profile looks like. And as you can see, it's a lot more interesting. At the top there, they get to the point about their kind of mission statement, serving up McDonald's person by person. You can see how many followers they've got. You can see how many employees work there. But you can also see that visit website button. So you can either have them go through to any page that you want, or I think there's a few different options, but I would put it to visit website because that's ultimately what you want people to do, is go back to your website and capture them that way. But the about statement here with McDonald's, I found really interesting because they don't hide away from the fact that they're a franchise. And I think that's been a little bit of a bugbear of mine with seeing sort of franchise brands out there. And, maybe that's just my opinion, but why hide the fact that they are, you're a franchise? It's a great opportunity for McDonald's to reinforce that. And they talk about independent local businessmen and women, and even include the word franchisees in there and how they employ people. This is really building a really nice picture of them as a brand and the opportunity at the same time. So if you're building out your homepage, I'd recommend to do these things. Take a look at McDonald's and see the way that they've put it out there. Okay, so the other thing about their page as well that I looked at was their posts. All of their posts have people on there, and they're normally centered around stories. On LinkedIn, it's all about people. Graphics, they don't work so well. You don't get people's attention in those 2 or 3 seconds that you get as they're scrolling through, unless there's a face or a story that's being told. So I thought that was really interesting. So I would definitely recommend checking them out. But the other thing I wanted to mention about the homepage was that you can invite your connections. So having your personal profile and your staff's personal profile and your franchisees' profiles, as soon as they're associated with your homepage, they then have 100 credits available to invite people to follow that page. And this is a really good way to build up the number of followers that you have, which then means you can produce the content that lands on those people's feeds. And this is all about brand awareness, of course. So yeah, 100 credits, but each month that gets topped up by another 100 credits. So maximize that as much as possible would be my advice. So talking about the personal profile, that's the second thing that I want to briefly touch on. So the personal profile gives you way better reach than your homepage does. When you put posts out there, people are more likely to engage with you as an individual than they are a company page. So make sure this is maximized. You can also engage with people. So you can actually go and find influencers and talk about the topics that they're talking about, but that's typically going to be the same audience as yours. You can get out there into groups and things like that as well using your personal profile. But your personal profile can be an area of validation as well. And I think to not maximize that profile page of yours and talk about your brand and present it in the best light possible, you are missing out on a big opportunity. With that reach that you've got, the ability to go out there and engage with other people with great content and in their groups, you're missing out on a chance for people to learn about your business, but also find you and validate, the brand as well. And then finally, perhaps not finally, but the next one is you can direct people to your website from here as well. So while you're out there being awesome on LinkedIn and sharing hints and tips and getting involved in conversations, people are then going to look at your profile because they'll see you as a leading voice within that particular topic. And on there, you can start to tell them about how to find your website and a bit about what you do. I'll go through some of this with some examples in a moment. But the other thing that I think is really important is we've all heard the same: people buy from people. If you're a faceless brand, it doesn't attract people to you as easily as a nice smiling face like this one here with Julie on her LinkedIn profile. So when you can actually see the people behind the brand, understand their stories, you're much more brought into it. And especially as franchisees or prospective franchisees are going through that validation piece and they start looking at who's working there, who the franchisees are, who the owner of the business is, who's going to be leading that franchise brand, I think it's really important that you've got you on there at your best, really. So I thought I'd show you a few examples of impactful, well, one example of, at the least, of somebody who's quite impactful on LinkedIn, Leah Turner. If you haven't heard of her, she's an influencer. She actually started off, I believe, just creating print products, but she started putting out her profile on LinkedIn and was just genuine, honest, and helpful to people rather than selling her business. But her profile, I think, is interesting because in the header here, you can see very colorful, stands out. It's got lots of her smiling, but she's also got her links in there. So to Linktree, which is a place where once you click on that link, it goes through to a website or her podcast or whatever page she wants to direct you towards. She's also put her Instagram on there as well. And I could talk for ages about all of this, including the headline underneath her name, but you can see that she talks about LinkedIn, motivation, positivity, lead generation, and empowering women. Her business now has transitioned into one of training and focusing on LinkedIn with her training courses. So I thought I'd better show you my one as well and my cheesy smile, unfortunately. But yeah, again, you can see I've branded at the top here. I've put a little statement. Hopefully it's fairly impactful. And in my description, you can see that actually I have put in there my link. Okay, so it's nice and easy for people to find that link and then go and find me from elsewhere. And you can see that I talk about business, franchising, new challenges, and career options. I've also mentioned about my podcast in there again as well. So these are all areas where you can promote your business without forcing it down someone's throat. They can find this quite organically, and this is your opportunity to sell. This is your Tesco's Express where you've got stuff on the shelves. So also on the profile, you'll find that there's a featured section. So some of your best posts or the posts that you want to get your message across, that goes on there as well. Again, this is another opportunity for you to sell and talk about what you want your audience to learn about you. So for me, it's all about the podcast at the moment. And then if you scroll right to the bottom, of course, you can put in the company you're working for and details in there and more links, but I think we all know about that anyway. But the bottom of the page, you've got the recommendations section. And I think as business owners and not necessarily somebody who's looking to use this as a CV, you can now put in your business recommendations at the bottom. So I was lucky enough to speak to Deborah Salisbury of The Reading Doctor and Chris Goodchild, The Best Magic Mirrors, on my podcast. And they've been very kind and given me recommendations at the bottom there. So again, as people are going through my profile, they're seeing what I do, how I do it. They're getting to see a bit of my personality, and then they're seeing that third-party validation. It's pretty much what you do on a website, right? So why not make your personal profile into a little Tesco Express, a smaller version of your website? So third point, and hopefully I'm doing okay for time at the moment, but I think if you've listened to anybody talking about using social media, it's all about posting consistently. It builds brand awareness. I'd recommend at least 2 posts per week from your personal profile, as well as your homepage profile as well. And it gives you a really good opportunity and platform to educate your followers, your connections about your franchise opportunity. And I would say try not to do it just that. There's other content which I'll go through in a moment that you need to do to flesh that out, so you're not just selling or shouting to them about one topic, but it's a good place or good thing to do. It can position your brand as an industry leader. Which then in turn, of course, helps you to build trust and therefore direct people to your website. So within your post, you can have check out I use it for my podcast. Check out my podcast here. They go through to my link tree or to my website, and then they can find out more about me and my brand there as well. But more importantly, this is the thing that baffles me, why more companies don't do it and use this. It's absolutely free. It's a free marketing platform that, yes, it takes time and energy to put that content together, but it's free. If I would have told somebody, 5 or 10 years ago that they could advertise for free in a magazine or a newspaper, they'd be biting your hand off. So why aren't more people doing that today on social media? It's a free place to put your content out there and get your brand recognized. So some more stats that I thought were really interesting and relevant. LinkedIn generates 9 billion impressions every week, but there's only 3 million weekly content creators. That's a big opportunity if you turn into one of those weekly content creators to actually have a big impact, because realistically, 33 million users just in the UK, 690 million across the world, only 3 million are creating content on a weekly basis. That's a big opportunity to have a big impact. And then final stat that I thought was quite interesting was that 57.5% of users come to the platform through their mobile phone. I actually thought it would be desktop that was more popular, but this suggests to me that this is a lot of people looking in their lunch times on their phone. They don't want their employers to know what they're doing or looking at, so they're using their mobile phone and trying to find out stuff about their career or work life. So in terms of the content that you should be creating for LinkedIn, I'm going to give you a really brief overview of something that I learned from somebody else on LinkedIn who's gone from, he trained me in recruitment years ago, but he's now got massive social media presence and has started up his own marketing company off the back of it. It's doing really well. But it's called Eerie content. So content that is engaging, entertaining, relatable, inspiring, or educational is the type of content that works on LinkedIn, not sales content. Sales content, people scroll past because why would they engage with it? They don't need to. So if you want to get a sales message in to any of those posts, which I'd say, maybe 1 in 4 would be a good idea, you need to have one of these elements on there. Now, I won't go into this in too much depth, so I'll just show a few quick examples of work that I've done in the past that's worked really well. So these are for expense reduction analysts. We wanted to change the perception that our network was just full of analysts. We wanted people that are looking into our brand to understand that we're more than just analysts. So that's what we called the campaign. But what we did is we got the franchisees to create this content for us. We asked them to record themselves. They sent it through to us. We then put the title at the top with the questions and subtitles at the bottom and some fancy graphics. But that then becomes a social media piece of content. It's 2 to 3 minutes long, each video, and it's just a different style of testimonial rather than the kind of standard ones that are great for using on your website, but perhaps aren't as great on LinkedIn. So I was surprised. Quite a few people were putting their hands up and saying, yeah, love to join in, because it gives them and their brand a little bit of exposure as well. So yeah, utilize your franchisees. These examples are based around a different campaign that we did called Consultancy Insights. So what we wanted to do was position ourselves as experts that knew how to build a successful consultancy business. So what we did is we started to try and educate people that were in the consultancy world or wanted to start up their own consultancy business on how to do it and some of the difficult topics in that arena. And so we created, there's PDFs you can put on there that I call sliders that people can engage with and slide through, sort of step-by-step guides maybe. The one in the middle there is an audiogram. So we basically created a 30-minute show that talked around all these topics, and then we turned it into a podcast, and then we chopped it down into smaller sections to use on social media. So this audiogram was just a different visual way to put some of that content out there. And then on the right-hand side, you can see me at the studio of Mark Harmon, who helped us to produce it, talking about the whatever topic it was there. I can't see what it is on the full screen, but you can see static images, audio and visual. You can put them together and then you can record them in 2 days is what we did. So there's about 3 days worth of planning, 2 days of recording, and then we had 3 months worth of content that we chopped up and put out there, and it positioned us as an expert in the marketplace. As part of that, the one on the left-hand side, we created what comedy skits, because we wanted to do something that was entertaining and funny and light and interesting and different. And this one, we're talking about digital transformation and how it's important for consultants to be aware of it. And yeah, we were pretending to be dodgy salespeople, I think, within the digital world there. So had a few laughs around it, and that probably was the content from that campaign that got the biggest impact, was a bit of humor. On the right hand side there, this is one of our new franchisees, and I think this is an easy place for a lot of people to start. We promote all of our new franchisees from our homepage on LinkedIn, because we can talk about their business and what they're starting up. It shows the personal side. It shows that us as a brand, we're growing and doing well. People are wanting to join us, and here's one of those people. We can tell their story and how they got to join us. And what we find is that other franchisees love to share this one. They love it and say, welcome, well done, congratulations. And that then, that particular post on the right got us about, I think it was about 18,000 impressions, which again is getting the brand. And all of these posts, our brand is there present every single time. But this one really worked well. And it might be because he's got quite striking eyes as well, I think, almost scary. And then the final one, then and now. So there was a trend going around on Twitter of then and now people doing it. Why not use that with your franchisees to tell the story? Again, these were giving us in the tens of thousands of impressions, because again, franchisees are interested in it, like sharing it, and it spreads to their networks as well as our own followers. So yeah, I won't go too much into detail on any more of these, but right now, and we may be coming off the back end of a big trend within LinkedIn, polls. I know we've seen them absolutely everywhere, but a simple poll can get you big reach. So I got 11,000 views of this poll, which is 11,000 views of my face on people's profiles, and 121 people who were so engaged they wanted to find out what the question was and to see the results. They wanted to answer the question to see what the results came out as. So again, it's all about just getting awareness and getting people familiar with you. And I think, as Nick said, a lot of people are starting to recognize me in the franchising industry now because I talk about topics. And even without speaking to some of you, you might already feel like you know me. So I think hitting on those trends is a really important thing to do as and when they come through on LinkedIn. So groups and events, I think this is an area that is is really underused within LinkedIn by companies. It's a way to get your content in front of a relevant audience. It enables free messaging to group members. I'm going to go through some of these in examples in a moment. It can help you to build a micro community. It's an opportunity to engage on hot topics within your industry or sector. And it's a way to position your brand as a leading voice. So I thought I'd have a look at some of these groups and find some that might be relevant to some of you. So I looked at just people that are in the mindset of changing something in their life. Maybe they want to start up a new business. Where are they going to go? So I just typed in startup, clicked on groups, and I found this one with 31,300 members in the UK alone. If you join that group, you've then got a way to connect and contact people that are in that group. Oh, I've gone upwards rather than down. With expense reduction analysts, we went quite niche and found cost reduction groups. So 7,000 members, that's still a fairly decent chunk. So we can get in there, start talking about solutions to challenges within that industry, and again, become that thought leader with a group of people that are clearly interested in cost reduction. And then, of course, that works locally as well. So my home county, Kent, we have one there as well with 3,000 members. So it's worth getting into these groups, because any post that you put in there, it will appear on the feed of the members of that group. And of course, once you're in that group, you can invite your connections to go there as well. So again, leverage that personal brand, build up your connections, and then invite them to groups where you think they might be interested in. And you can create your own group, of course. It doesn't have to be one that you go out there and join yourself. You can create it yourself and be very specific around how to build your own successful consultancy business, for example, and then invite your connections, and that's how you build up members to that group. And then you're in there, you're posting and sharing eerie content. And then finally, once you're part of these groups, on the top of your LinkedIn bar, there's a button that you press, My Network, and you'll see suggestions to the groups that you're in. And this is a good place to then start connecting with people that LinkedIn suggests you might know. But for me, in franchising, in the Franchise Collective, I can see Joe from Bright and Beautiful. There's Dan from Sparks Film and Media. I mean, I don't know what they do specifically, but it's interesting that you can have these suggestions come to you, which is fairly easy. And I go onto here like in an evening, maybe while I'm waiting for the microwave to ping or whatever it is when my dinner's being made, and just spend a few minutes going through finding these relevant people and connecting with them. But one other thing I wanted to mention about this is, look at Helen Tudor there. She's not an appealing person to make me want to go and connect with her. I know nothing about her from that snapshot. Whereas Joe, nice smiley picture, she's got the branding behind her. You know, you can see straight away that's somebody I might want to connect with. So then on to events. You can create your own events that can then sit on your homepage. or you can join other people's events as well. And these are typically online webinars, or they might be a way that you can kind of register your interest for a face-to-face event as well. Now, I know we can all sort of see them on posts and stuff like that, but when you create them on LinkedIn, what happens is all the attendees become sort of almost advertised on there. And again, before I go into those attendees, you can see here it's an opportunity for branding. I don't think these guys have done a great job, but again, they've put their link in there to their business. You can put your logo in there and some smiley faces and the presenter's face on there, or your logo, whatever you want to do. But I think it's just another opportunity to increase brand awareness, especially if you go in with the right topic. This is quite broad, so it's going to attract a lot of people, which it did. And once you're attending a group, attending an event, or you are hosting the event, you have access to all of the attendees. And it doesn't matter if they're second or third connections, you now have the ability to message them for free. Normally, a second connection, you can't message directly. You have to connect with them first and then message them. But here, you've got an opportunity to message directly. Now, how you message them, I'll leave that to you and the marketing teams with the right messaging. But I just want to show you that functionality, because I think a lot of people aren't aware that this can be a good place to find people that are interested in a particular topic, like starting a business. And at least you know they're in the right frame of mind, and so they're worth speaking to. So we created an event with expense reduction analysts, how to build your own successful consultancy business. We created a guidebook with it, and we got our chief sales officer, or he's now executive director, Arnd Hellback, to produce a 30-minute presentation solely on how to build your successful consultancy business. We did this through our Consultancy Insights brand. And as we went through, it was about 30 minutes of training. And then at the end, we started to kind of turn the conversation around and say, if you are looking to start up a business, something to bear in mind is that 80% of startups fail. We got these stats from the BFA. So of course, you can find that information, put it into the end, startup versus franchise, and then say, we are such a franchise, and here's a little bit about us. So if you need help setting up your own consultancy, drop us a line. And that was really interesting and useful. We actually got 50 attendees for one webinar we put out. And yeah, we managed to get 2 sales off the back of it, because we'd done all of that awareness stuff at the front with all the content that we put together. We then hit them with the invite to the event. And then once they've attended the event, that's where we kind of show to them how they could join us and why. And by that point, they're kind of understanding the value why. They then also get a PDF sent through to them, by the way, after the event. Automatically, we use GoToWebinar, but that on there, again, we can have our branding at the end and tell them why it's a good idea to start their consultancy business through us. But yeah, we managed to get 2 sales, one in Germany and one in Spain off the back of that activity. So I'm conscious I haven't got too long left, so I'm going to rattle through some of this fairly quickly, but proactive search. So target your franchisee avatar directly. If you don't know what a franchisee avatar is, it's basically your ideal franchisee. You can increase your connections through proactive search and followers for your homepage, start conversations, and more opportunities to invite people to your groups, events, and homepage. So I thought, again, to take a look at something that's going to be fairly relevant to you guys. And I know a lot of the children's activity franchises don't go on LinkedIn because they don't think their audience is on there. But if in the top, you just type in the search bar, mum, and narrow it down to the UK, I found there's 53,000 mums, or people that have stated mum on their profile. So that's a really easy way to create a list of people that you should be connecting with if that's your target franchisee. So I thought of another way that we've used quite regularly within expense reduction analysts. Type in new opportunity, or looking for opportunities, or open to opportunities. And what you'll find is there's quite a few people that put that on their profile. So again, these are people in the right frame of mind now to be talking to, because they want to change something in their life or their career. So yeah, another free way to find people that are in that point in their life. And then once you've sort of filtered them down to 11,000 or 53,000, you can of course then filter them down some more. There's options. This is all free to do. So sports, veterinary, accounting, food and beverages, you know, it's really useful to narrow those people down. Locations, you can do the countries, you can do the cities, but also like I've done there, you can go into the towns as well. So if you've got a specific area that you want to target with franchisees, because it's territory that's not been taken up, you know, you can do that as well. And then in your invitation, actually, I was quite surprised when I first saw this, but you get 300 characters. So that's quite a bit. What I would say is that it shouldn't be a copy and paste effort. It should be personal to that person and you'll get a better response. But again, this is a good way to connect with the right people and encourage them to then go through that whole kind of seeing your posts, seeing your homepage, seeing your events and things like this. So connect with the people that you want to buy into your brand. And I'd suggest not selling to them at this point, but just start them on that kind of journey through discovering your business. So I'm just going to go quickly through this one, but at ERA, we used this with a new territory that our country managers struggled to sail in, make a recruit franchisees in, should I say, and they had no sales within 3 years. We generated 139 leads and got 2 sales off the back of this approach through proactive search. So it works and it's time consuming, but at least those people are exactly what we're after and worked in a difficult territory. So action points, optimize your profiles. Probably the most important thing to do from day one. Start to post consistently, create and join relevant events. Groups, use events to promote maybe your discovery days or how-to videos or webinars to your followers. And then have a go at proactive search as well to build out your networks and engage with people that you think are your target franchisees. One bonus thing, and this is why I'm going over time a bit, is newsletters. This seems to be the new trend on LinkedIn. I've created one called Full Disclosure, aimed at franchisors. It got 800 subscribers within 1 week. So they will now receive a notification on LinkedIn from me and an email into their inbox with my newsletter. And I got on my personal profile 200, well, it's over 200 profile views it was within 24 hours of sharing it, because newsletters invite absolutely everybody in your connections to subscribe to your newsletter. So at the moment, that's somewhere you can have a big impact quickly, straight away. And there's just a little graph to show how quickly that impacted my kind of profile views. So that's pretty much it. So the franchised, I'm in the process of launching the business in its full entirety, but it will be a franchise listing website focused on creating people and eerie content that involves people, should I say. It's content distribution across all social media channels, so YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, of course. Lead generation support, so the proactive search side of things, that's how I go about sourcing potential candidates for franchisees. And of course, I've got my podcast, The Disenfranchised. And just to elaborate on that slightly, it's aimed at people that are looking to change something in their career. They're disenfranchised with the corporate world, by sharing with them inspiring stories from franchisors and experts from the industry. So if anybody is a franchisor and they want to get involved and be a guest, it doesn't cost you anything. And I put you out there on all those social media channels, as well as YouTube and various podcast platforms as well. So that's everything from me. Sorry to have gone through it so quickly. I did try and condense as much as I could before, but hopefully it's been useful. And thank you for listening. And I'm open to questions if that's okay, Nick.
I'll deal with the questions shortly, Ed. Can you unshare your screen for me, if that's okay?
Of course.
But thank you. Some observations from that. I'm a massive LinkedIn aficionado, user, call it what you will. We will take questions I call it questions from the Zoom shortly. But basically, observations from there. Julie's picture, smiling as she was obviously taken at the Riverside on Tuesday night. That's an observation. The search, proactive search, when you're talking about a simple term, putting mums in there and finding 53,000 people who've listed that on their profile. I mean, it's amazing, and it's free, and it is hard work. You know, I do a lot of work around using LinkedIn for my clients as well. And the search facility is the most effective, isn't it? You know, you talk about people looking for new opportunities, 11,000 people in the UK saying that might be me. The other thing I'd say is Leah Turner is indeed awesome. I follow Leah. She's gone from being a working mum with a young lad and looking for a career option to being very much an influencer on all social media platforms. And I just follow her on LinkedIn, and she's got some great content on there as well. But the last thing I'll say to you is events are awesome for generating traffic. And I'll give you an example. Outside of the franchise sector, one of my clients is a company that does e-learning and learning management systems. And we've put together an event on the 16th of March, and it's directed at companies with over 500 staff. And it says, are you investing in training in 2022? Do you employ more than 500 staff? And it's called, Is a Learning Management System Right for You? Simple as that. We've got 64 bookings for that, but we're talking about global heads of learning and development, massive, organizations and corporates. And we'll build a pipeline of 50 or so opportunities from an event that was put on LinkedIn and has been managed through LinkedIn up to the 16th of March. So I'm going to concur with everything you said there, Ed. You know, yes, it's a bit of hard work, but it's free. And more importantly than it's free, it actually works. So, on that basis, that's what, we should be looking at that for anyone who wants to, drive interest, traffic, and brand recognition. So thanks for sharing all of those, Ed. Really appreciate that. We've got some questions in the chat, so bear with me while I go through those, and then we'll do the old hands up bit. So we are sharing the slide. Yes. Hi, Ed. What's your opinion on the effectiveness of photos versus videos as content, and how often should I publish my newsletter? 2 questions there, and that's from Caroline.
Yeah, it's interesting. You'd assume that videos would get more reach, but I've actually found that some posts where it's a static image actually works better. And I think it's more about the content necessarily rather than the what it is, what kind of media it is. And I think a big part of that as well is the text above there. It's almost like a headline. You've got to get that headline right to make sure that people then want to click and engage and share and like. If you've just got a video of you saying, hello, please buy my franchise, it's not going to be very engaging. But if you have an image of you smiling, or one of your franchisees smiling, and then the right sort of text to go with it, that will get a lot more engagement. It's all about testing and trialing and not worrying that it might bomb, because if it bombs and doesn't reach that many people, it doesn't matter. It's going to be there for a short period of time, and people will move on. They'll just scroll past.
Can I add to that as well, Ed? Though, if you're going to use video on social media platforms, you need to have subtitles on there. 95% of people consume video without the audio on, if they're looking on the lunch break or they're on the train or wherever it might be, and they don't have the sound on. So I'll give you anyone a tip. There's a company called rev.com, based in America. You send a video over to them, they'll send it back overnight. It's about $3 per minute, and they'll do your subtitling. And even with my accent, 95% accurate, and it still comes back as a bit of a Word document. You just change it if they've spelt the American version or they've misheard what you've said. So if I can use it, anyone can use it. But rev.com will put your subtitles on your videos cheaply and quickly and efficiently.
I use them all the time, but I've discovered now that Premiere Pro, the video editing platform that I use, they've got a functionality in there now that can auto create them from the videos. But
excellent.
One other thing to mention about videos on LinkedIn is keep them to about 3 minutes. You can put long form stuff on there, but you're better to put that long form content on your own website and have a little snippet and then drive people towards that content on your website, because people don't sit on social media for half an hour reading, watching a video. They might do on YouTube, but not on an Instagram, where they just want to keep on scrolling and click and engage with a couple of things.
Okay. Anthony from Asprey's made an observation, and quite rightly, on Leah Turner. You mentioned Leah. I noticed that her posts can be quite controversial, personal, and cause quite a bit of a stir. This is great for her brand. It works for her and it's very engaging, but isn't possible for all brands. Have you got any advice for creating a sense of community whilst maintaining brand integrity? I'd agree with that, by the way, having seen some of her posts, Anthony, and like you say, it's right for her, but it might not be right for you. So what would you say about brand integrity and sense of community, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, right? Like, the controversial stuff can get a lot of exposure and you get a lot of conversation started, but you can pick and choose the topics that you talk about, I guess, and instead of put your opinion across, maybe ask the question in a poll. So you could say, I see this as controversial, what do you think? And that's going to generate engagement, people clicking, liking, having their say, and therefore you're not necessarily engaging in that yourself directly, but you're allowing the kind of controversy in there. And it shows that you care about something within that community that you're in. I personally like to think, I like to include other experts from the franchising industry, rather than it be my voice, let it be their voice. So the podcast is a really good way for me to do that. The newsletter is as well. I use other people's expertise and share that with the community that I'm trying to build for myself. So the other thing that you can do is make sure you go and find the people that are talking about these topics, and then put your viewpoint across. The only problem is there's always this battle between the brand and the personal, and it's very difficult to get that balance right. It's much easier for an independent, but it's much more difficult when you've got a large brand and trying to have these competing voices. It's difficult.
I think you've got to choose your tone of voice and be comfortable with what you're trying to say as well, and Lee is clearly comfortable about causing a few ructions, and that works for her. I think you've got to work out what your tone of voice is, and the tone of voice of the listeners that you're trying to attract. Would it alienate people? If it would, then you're probably not going to do it on LinkedIn. You might want to do it on a different platform, just to, if you're there for a different reason. Nicola's asked a valid question. From rightboat.com. What's your thoughts on first approach? You find an individual or a company, you want to approach them as a potential franchisee, connect on LinkedIn first as an intro, or phone them first?
So they've found you on LinkedIn, have they?
You found them, I guess, through Nicola. Just want to unmute for me. I'm guessing through a search, or they've tripped over some of your content. You say, oh, we should be connecting. You found them through LinkedIn.
Yeah, or actually, there's quite a few marine investors acquiring and making acquisitions all around the world, which I think possibly might be interested in our franchise opportunity. So, especially when it's a big investment company, unlikely that my phone call or my email is going to be noticed. So what would you recommend?
Sure. So if you found them on LinkedIn, I that first message, I always put the reason why I think they're an interesting, why there should be a good connection. So for you, it could be, I see that you're in the marine industry, and I'm very much involved in that community and would love to connect.
Yeah.
It can be as simple and basic as that. But of course, once you've got that connection, they're going to start seeing your posts and all that other content, and that's your voice. Now,
yeah,
you can look through their profile and pick out something interesting as well. And if they've got on there, they support Arsenal, I might say, good to see that you're an Arsenal supporter as well. What do you think of the score's going to be the weekend, or whatever that topic is? But it can then start that conversation, and then ask them, rather than sell to them, ask them, so how's things in your world? I quite like using that because it's quite broad, and they can then talk about whatever they want to talk about. And if they talk about some challenges and you can solve that challenge for them, then that's your opportunity to step in and say, well, actually, this is what we do, find out more. But the likelihood is as soon as you send that connection request, they're going to look at your profile and try and find out more about you there anyway.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that's the place to sell, rather than trying to sell to them on that connection request. There's
my addition to that, Nicola, would be as well, you know, let's say you wanted to connect with me and I was a target. You send me a connection request because it's right to do so, and I choose to ignore it. You can always follow it up with a phone call after the event. The fact that I chose to ignore your connection request doesn't mean I've ignored it. It might mean it just slipped my net on that day, because you really get a time window, don't you, on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
People send me messages on LinkedIn and they say, I sent you a message last week. Well, I don't emails for that reason. You know, I'll look at my emails regularly, but my messages in LinkedIn, if it's not done on that day, it won't get done because another one takes its place. So don't be worried about following them up by phone if they haven't connected, because you know who they were in the first place, and you can go to old school on that basis. But I think, as Ed was saying there, you know, let them drop on your profile and understand the reason why it's appropriate for you to have reached out in the first place. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
you can actually be quite direct on there as well, and it does work. I've seen it happen where people say that I'm contacting you because your profile tends to work really well within our network. We'd love to have a chat with you about it, about the opportunity if you're in the right space. And it's amazing the percentage of people that do come through and say, yeah, okay, let's have a chat.
Cool.
I should have added, by the way, not much ever comes about being positive by discussing Arsenal, but we'll move on from that. Chris from Poppies asked, what proportion of your social media time do you spend or recommend on LinkedIn versus other platforms?
I think that's going to come down to your brand and who your ideal franchisee is. You know, there is a case for the children's activities ones to be more on Facebook, because that's where the majority of their audience is most of the time. But I still think that there should be a percentage of your time spent on LinkedIn as well. Now, should you be posting consistently and making it a big drive on LinkedIn to create that buzz on there? Maybe it's not, but at the very least, have your profile up to date and looking good and driving people towards your website and your homepage as well. That's the very least I'd recommend doing. And then, I mean, I kind of just include them all into my kind of routines though. In the morning, or, you know, when I'm eating breakfast, I'm probably scrolling through, and what I'll do is I'll kind of start commenting on a few things on LinkedIn, and then I'll have a look at Facebook, and I probably don't interact much on there because that's not been an area that's of importance to me. But I can't say there's one specific split of time that you should have, but it's going to come down to who is your target franchisee at the end of the day. Okay,
I've got one more on chat, then I'll come to you, Simon. I know you've had your hand up. I apologise. I'm trying to get through the chat ones as well. This has come from Anthony again, Asprey. Longest question ever, this, Anthony. Appreciate it. So, how best would you recommend weighting? Sort of describing what your role is, which is a loss assessor in Asprey, and inspiring people to become self-employed. Their role is quite complicated, but I fear that if we talk about property and insurance, you miss out on the emotional pull of someone wanting to go self-employed. Would you use LinkedIn functionality? Is there LinkedIn functionality that's best used for either? For example, would you use Asprey page to focus on the role and your personal account to inspire people for getting out of their 9-to-5 role? So I guess it's the difference between what content is on company, what content's on the personal page. Then I will come to Simon.
It's a good question. I think for your personal profile, it's kind of got to reflect your personality, your story, what's going on in your life, and what your interests are. From the company page, it's got to be more related to the brand. So I'd put more stuff on there like franchisee testimonial videos and things like that. Whereas on my personal profile, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably stick to stuff about me, but I can of course share that content from that homepage as well. So I can put that post into a different group. So the franchising collective, I might put my podcast into there but I've posted it actually on my homepage. So it's like you said, Nick, I think it's the tone of voice, right? So your tone of voice can be completely different to your business tone of voice. And your business tone of voice is what your brand should be. and it should have the content that's related to that, whereas your personal one can be different.
Well, you just rephrase it. Should I be selling Escape the 9 to 5 or be an Asper loss assessor? I'll answer that for you because I'm a sales specialist. Always sell the Escape the 9 to 5. What's the phrase? Sell the sizzle, not the sausage. Nobody cares about being an Asper loss assessor when you first engage them. Nobody whatsoever. They do care at that stage about what a 9 to 5 escape might look like. That'd be my answer to that one.
There are four. Sorry, Nick, I'm just going to follow up that. There are 4 reasons why people change something in their career that I've boiled it down to.
Yeah.
Control, and that includes flexibility, working closer to home or whatever it may be, working on the projects they want to, but control. They want to make an impact. So they've got experience and they want to go out there and do some good in the world, maybe in the local environment. The next one is a new challenge.
Can't talk. So
they want to actually do something completely different. They've been in their role for 10 years or whatever, and they're bored of it and they need to find a way out. And then the final one is money, but money kind of is an undercurrent for all of those. Money allows them to do those other things. So those are the sorts of messages. It's tap into that pain point, right, Nick?
Anthony, if you want to take that up with a bit more detail with Ed, then obviously he's available to do so. I've promised I'll come to Simon. Simon, do you want to unmute for me? And then we shall.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks. It was just a couple of observations, really. I mean, we're professional headhunters, so LinkedIn is everything. It's it's a massively powerful tool. I think Ed did a brilliant job there of explaining some of the key things. I mean, one of the things that I'm always debating over, and life is made a lot difficult for the headhunter when your descriptions are very, selling the sizzle as opposed to the sausage. And I think some people do it well, other people do it badly, and it can potentially put people off. I mean, I think Ed, yours is finding a better way to freedom or whatever it may be. I just think you need to think about it quite carefully, because sometimes it can be a little bit cheesy. You get your window cleaner that calls themselves a vision technician and things like that. So that was one observation. Most people use LinkedIn on mobile, don't they? And I think that has an impact on how what content you put on there, and where, make sure your website's optimized as well for mobile. Presumably that's something you'd recommend as well, or it has implications for the type of posts that you put on there.
Yeah, so one of the worst sorts of posts I see is when somebody takes a PDF case study and they post it onto LinkedIn, and it's just an A4 page full of text. Well, on mobile, once it's smaller, you're not going to be able to read any of that text. Yeah. So what's the point? So yeah, optimizing your content and anything else for mobile is really important, I think. Yeah,
that's awesome. And also, there quite a few people don't have their messaging function linked to their email account as well on LinkedIn, which is really annoying. So again, if somebody's contacting you, you might not respond to it because you don't get that email feed at the same time. That's something we've noticed over time as well.
Actually, people are being approached in 2 ways, aren't they?
I chose to disable that, Simon, because I was getting too many of them.
That's interesting.
It's a personal choice. There's enough channels, isn't there, already? There are. If you've got WhatsApp, texts, emails, I've got 4 different client email accounts. Then you got LinkedIn messaging. I disabled the LinkedIn messaging connected to my email on the basis that I want to proactively go and look for my LinkedIn messages, not be having them forced at me. I was just getting overwhelmed with, just overwhelmed with the amount, really. So I
guess it's down to choice, isn't it, really, at the end of the day?
Yeah, it is. Any more questions from the room? Got any more in the chat? What have we got? Great presentation. When will the recording be issued? Good grief. Oh, give us a time. Give us time. Who's that good? Who's King's Cam to everyone. Great presentation. When will the recording be issued, please? Well, that's down to Amy, who is Julie's daughter, and it'll be it'll go out next week, Andrew. It's got to render first. We can't make it go any quicker. So early part of next week, and we'll share that out, and you can have a look at that. Please feel free to share it with other franchisors. So that just remains for me to say, well, first of all, thank you again to Ed for his excellent presentation. Thanks to all of you for your comments and your questions. Some contact details there for Ed, which I'm sure you'll find anyway. Just look up Ed Purnell on LinkedIn. I'm sure he's very high up on the list. My name is Nick Bramley, and when LinkedIn first started, I was second to a guy who was a tiling expert in Warrington, but I think I've smashed him out the park now. So, you know, Ed, I don't know how many Ed Purnells are on LinkedIn, but I'm sure your activity, you're top of the search engine on that one. So,
well,
so
you've seen my cheesy smile now anyway, haven't you?
Exactly,
So that's easy to
exactly.
find.
So what's next? 1st of April, which is April Fool's Day. That doesn't say that James is the April Fool that we're going to have. We've got James from Franchise Base who's going to be talking to us about systems that you need to be a successful franchisor. What Ed covered today was discipline. You have to have discipline to be effective using LinkedIn. And I know that James is going to say your systems have to have discipline to help you to be successful. So that'll be a really interesting session with James next month on Friday, the 1st of April. We've then got Tim Morris from Symphony on the 6th of May, finding time and the right support to manage franchise recruitment, because this is about how do we make it work and how do we find the time to be a part of your franchise or, I guess, responsibilities or growth ambitions. Another date for the diary is Simon Wise and myself in June. Sam's a long time off, but it'll soon come round. How to build a successful franchise support team. And then the last thing for me to say is we shall see you on Friday, the 1st of April. Please tell the people that you work with, that you know in your network that are part of the franchisor network about First Friday. We'd love that to be something that we can continue to expand. And we really appreciate your help and support.